detractors of the establishment narrative, welcome to the Steve Graves Radio Show. The show with the most honest, raw, and dangerous commentary. The things said on this show, they're not gonna be popular at work, standing around the watering hole, folks. The truth is not popular. The thing is, people aren't ready for this stuff. They are living inside the matrix, in the simulation, the illusion that has been sold to us through media propaganda. We are here thinking critically, using discernment while we cover the news, politics, and culture around the world. On this show, we are working to deprogram our minds from the powerful brainwashing we have all been subjected to via the media, education system, the government, and financial institutions, all at the behest of the few most powerful elites who have only their interests in mind. They seek nothing but power and control over the masses, and there is no end to the evil they will commit in order to achieve that. So please hit the follow button, folks. Repetitive. That's one of the tools that they use in brainwashing with propaganda. That's what the media uses. Repetitive. They repeat the same thing over and over and over until it's beaten into your head and you can't think about anything else. Hit the follow, hit the subscribe, hit the like button. Do something. I try to, I don't get to do the show as often as I'd like, even though I have all the time in the world right now. I'm a little bit injured right now. I got some serious health complications going on with my spine. So, and it's only getting worse. So I'm more and more uncomfortable and more in pain. So I try to do the shows when I can. It's a little bit of a it's a little bit of a burden for me, but I want to get on here and talk about some stuff. We're going to talk about, just real quick, we're going to hit just a couple of things in the news to do with Trump's appointments and things like that. Matt Gaetz, what happened there. And then we're going to get into the World War III that's inevitable at this point. I've been talking about this for a long time. I've been talking about this for a couple of years at this point, obviously, since the beginning of the special military operation there carried out by Russia in Ukraine for good reason. It's not like Russia was unprovoked. We'll get into that a little bit more. And then we'll get into some of this Illuminati stuff. These are actual Illuminati prophecies, which really just means, in my opinion, that these are their plans. We're going to talk about Albert Pike. We've talked about him in the past. Talked about his prediction. He predicted the first 2 world wars, spot on. The 3rd World War he predicted, and it so far is looking extremely accurate. So we'll take a look at that and we'll talk about it maybe at the end of the show if I've got the energy, or if there's anybody out there who wants to call in. I know I see Rob Rosethorn in the chat, and he's hyping me up in the chat pre-show. So I appreciate that, Rob. Thank you much. I know this is a weird time slot, 9:30 p.m. I'm a little bit better at nighttime. It's a little easier for me to do nighttime or later at nighttime. Usually I was doing 7:30. I'm thinking 9 o'clock or 9:30 is going to be better. Maybe there's people out there who are still awake at that time. And this is Pacific Coast time, Pacific Standard Time, or whatever. We're in daylight time. I don't even know what the difference is. So let's talk about a couple of things here first before we get into the New World Order nonsense, the Illuminati and all that, which everything intertwines. It's all ties together in some way. You see, I changed my my Twitter name, but they took away my blue check mark. I don't think they're going to give me a blue check mark when I have exposed the tiny hat people as my Twitter name. Anyways, Jack Poso posted this: breaking, Mitch McConnell was a quote hard no on Gates, along with 3 other senators, Murkowski, Collins, and Curtis. This kept him 1 vote under the threshold for confirmation. I say here, it's always just 1 vote. That's how the uniparty works. And I I talked about this. I told you guys this was going to happen. I told you that with so many GOP swamp monsters, it doesn't matter if Republicans hold the majority in the Senate and in the House. It doesn't matter because there's enough uniparty Republicans. Obviously, the Democrats are basically all in lockstep, whether or not they're uniparty or not. They stay lockstep. That's just what they do. Maybe they're all uniparty. And basically what uniparty means is they're controlled by outside entities. Could be a foreign lobbying entity, something like AI PAC. Or it could be something else that's controlled by tiny hat people like big pharmaceutical companies. Or it could be another sector that is also controlled by people who wear tiny hats, which is big tech, Google, things like that, Facebook, social media. It could be people from the military-industrial complex, people who are interested in expanding these wars, fighting these wars. A lot of them are tiny hat people, maybe not all of them. Really, you can't really generalize any group because there's always going to be exceptions. But largely, you look for the tiny hat people, you will find some things questionable going on. At least that seems to be the pattern that I have noticed. I don't know. Maybe I'm just crazy. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the crazy one. All right, let's see. So, one vote. They got rid of Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz is the only person who's not funded by AI PAC. He has criticized Israel. He has criticized the Israel lobby for having so much power. He's talked about who he thinks was running the murder of Jeffrey Epstein, he basically said it's Mossad. He said it without saying it. I think he can't say it otherwise. Who knows what they'll do to him. So they got rid of him, and now Trump is replacing him with this lady Pam Bondi, and very concerning. She is absolutely a rabid Zionist. She is 100% all on board with letting Israel do whatever they want, allowing them to start whatever wars, commit whatever war crimes, have as much influence as they want over the United States government. She don't care. And as you can see here, GOP swamp monster Lindsey Graham, of course, he's very excited. He gave a glowing review here because you got Trump War Room posting out that Trump is proud to announce former Attorney General of the great state of Florida. By the way, it seems like Trump is only picking people from Florida, and maybe it's because he has trust issues from 2016. A lot of people stabbed him in the back. The thing is, he befriends these people who are establishment shills or embedded deeply into the establishment or their deep state. And he allows them to get close to him. I don't know if, I feel like he must know what's going on, but it may be easier to see it from the outside looking in rather than being actually the person sitting there when you're surrounded by all these people within the state of Florida who have all this power. So, he's trying to keep his circle tight. And those are the people he spends the most time with because he lives in Florida, in Mar-a-Lago. So the former Attorney General, Pam Bondi, she was from the state of Florida, as the Attorney General of the United States. She was a prosecutor for nearly 20 years, blah, 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 blah. Now, maybe she's not the worst in the world, but that's probably the case. She's probably not the absolute worst. She probably has some conservative values. I don't know. I don't know all that much about her. But I do know that I've seen plenty of videos of her where she is basically giving a blowjob to Israel. So Lindsey Graham, and this is not a good sign. Lindsey Graham, says, "Well done, Mr. President. Picking Pam Bondi for Attorney General is a grand slam touchdown, hole-in-one, ace hat trick, slam dunk, Olympic gold medal pick." She will be confirmed quickly because she deserves to be confirmed quickly. So anybody, this is the problem with how deeply corrupted our system is in the United States of America. Our government is so infiltrated with these deep staters because they are controlled. They are controlled by lobbyists. This is why they come out with these absurd opinions. It's not that they would come to that organically or naturally. It's because somebody's telling them, and they don't care. These people are soulless. It doesn't matter if it's selling out the American public, the American people, the American taxpayer. It doesn't matter. They don't care because they're going to get paid somewhere along the line. They're going to get more power. These people are sociopathic narcissists. They don't care about anything. They want power. They want money to get more power. The money isn't really that important to them. It's just that money allows you to get more power. The power is what they're really after. That's what all of them are. That's what the Rothschilds are after. That's what Larry Fink and BlackRock and all these other people. The money is meaningless to them. They've got so much money. They're creating the money. They create the monetary systems. These fake made up BS monetary systems like the Federal Reserve. They make this stuff up. They pull it out of their ass, and they don't care about the money. What they care about is the power that money can provide you. And other people care about money so they can buy other people and get more power. So I don't know what we're going to do. What's the plan with Donald Trump? Is he going to fire people if they aren't putting America first? Is Donald Trump going to put America first? I sure hope so. He always seems to have a very patriotic and a love for America and the American people. So I hope that he puts us first. Unfortunately, in order to get to a position of power in this country, you have got to grovel, kiss the ring, bend the knee to a certain ruling class. And if you don't, big problems for you. Big problems like what Donald Trump ran into in 2016. Donald Trump was beloved in 2016 and the years prior by the mainstream media, by the liberals, by The View, by all of these people. All the Hollywood loved him. He was a TV star, The Apprentice. They all loved him. But at some point, he started telling AI PAC he didn't need their money or want their money. He's not controlled. He said at a debate, he was standing there with 16 other people on the stage, and says, the reason why I can say what I want is because I'm not taking money from those guys, and everybody else on the stage is. But guess what? Money is not their only power, because they also have power within the media, the news, social media, television, Hollywood. So what do? They twist the narrative. They turn the narrative against Donald Trump. Donald Trump steps out of line against their mainstream narrative, says that he wants to shake things up. He wants to be a consequential president. And they said, we're not having any of that. We are going to bash everybody over the head with garbage propaganda 24/7 until he is the most hated man on the planet. And this propaganda spreads deep, far, and wide, because literally people in other countries think that Donald Trump is some evil maniac, even though his first term was the most peaceful term of a president in my entire life. And I'm almost 40 years old. So they'll twist reality. That's the whole point. So if he doesn't toe the line and he doesn't play ball with these, whatever you want to call them, tiny hat people, deep staters, whatever it is, AI PAC, whoever controls the media and the banking, whoever those people are, you don't play ball. They will attempt to destroy you, up to and including assassination. And they've already attempted to assassinate him. The guy who shot a bullet at his head had been in a BlackRock commercial less than a year before. So if you don't believe in MK Ultra and mind control, you better start thinking about that. And honestly, we're all being subjected to a larger, more massive MK Ultra style operation when it comes to the media. It's been exposed, it's been pointed out. People will show you videos of every local news station around the entire country literally saying the exact same thing. It's a script that is fed to them. You see it in newspapers and magazines and whatever these websites, news websites, all across the country. They come out with a couple of key words and they bang you over the head over it. Hit the subscribe, hit the follow, hit the subscribe, hit the follow. They bang you over the head with this stuff until you don't know what's what. You have no idea which way is up, which way is down. All you know is that you're turned in circles and you start just defaulting to whatever they've pounded into your brain. You have got to proactively disengage or proactively remind yourself and deprogram yourself constantly. Because if you don't, you will get caught up in this stuff. Alrighty, let's start getting into some of the Ukraine stuff here. Looks like we only got Rob Rostone over into the chase. Says, expose the tiny hat people. Yeah. He says, Trump is also forcing my government to shape up. If Canada doesn't get its border under complete control, 25% tariffs on all goods, Trudeau is panicking. Yeah. And people and liberals are all freaking out. You know, oh my God, they're going to charge 20. It's like, really, what do you buy that's from Canada? What are you buying that's imported from Canada here in the U.S.? All of your food is grown in California, basically. Your oil is either coming from the U.S. or from the Middle East. I don't know if we buy oil from Canada. maybe we do. Does Canada drill oil? I mean, they're so liberal, and they're leading the charge with the Green New Deal or whatever, the scam, the green climate scam. I don't know. People are so dumb. They're freaking out over this stuff. The tariffs are the least of your concerns. Don't worry about the tariffs. We just suffered. What's the official inflation that we suffered the last 4 years? It was at one point every quarter it was going up like 12 to 20%. And then it slowed down over the course of time. So from 2021, let's say, you have 12, 15 to 20 and they measure it by quarter. So when they tell you what the inflation rate is, it's just for that quarter. So one quarter could be 15%, the next quarter could be 5%, the next quarter is 2%. But if you add it all together, that's the total amount. So it's not like it goes down. The prices don't come back down. No, that's not what happens. We'd have to have a negative inflation rate for prices to come down. Have deflation, which has its own whole set of problems. The whole system is ridiculous. It's a house of cards. It's a total pyramid scheme. All right, so let's get into this Ukraine stuff. So Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State, one of the tiny hat people. I'm pretty sure he's a dual citizen of Israel. I cannot understand if there's any one country that we don't need dual citizens holding high-ranking government positions. It's Israel. They're not our friend. In fact, they have done nothing but harm to us and gotten us into big problems and lied to us and exploited us and taken advantage of us. And we send them billions of dollars. They're one of the richest countries on the planet, and we yet somehow feel like we have to send them billions of dollars every year and send them weapons and send them their Iron Dome and all that stuff. And we have our entire Navy over there practically making sure that incoming missiles don't hit them. But Anthony Blinken says, today we remember the Holodomor, Stalin's intentional famine that killed millions of Ukrainians. We reaffirm our support for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity as it defends its freedom against Russia's aggression. Well, this is interesting because he's a tiny hat person. He's a Jew. Generally, the general consensus from these Jewish organizations, they don't really recognize any genocides. They only talk about what their so-called genocide, the Holocaust, in Germany and during World War II, which is highly questionable at the very least. Not much evidence, not much physical evidence, but a ton of propaganda around it. That has been beaten into our heads from day one. Generational. Grandparents, parents, us, your kids. They're all beaten over the head with the propaganda of the Holocaust during World War II. You're not even allowed, it's illegal to even question it in many countries. And it seems as if they're trying to make it illegal to question it here in the United States of America. Which is obviously an infringement on the First Amendment. But you even have people who I liked at one point, like Kristi Noem, governor of South Dakota. I thought she was cool, especially during COVID and all that stuff. She seemed like pretty based. And come to find out, she wants to pass anti-speech laws to allegedly protect Jews from anti-Semitism. But literally everything is anti-Semitism. But generally they don't, these other genocides, they like to play them down. Oh no, the worst one, 6 million. World War II, Hitler bad, 6 million. That's all they were saying. That number was revised down to like 1.5 million. And even that number isn't very realistic. And the forensics that have been done prove that there were no gases being used that would be used for gas chambers. In fact, there was no buildings that could even be used as an effective chamber to gas people. So anyways, that's a whole nother topic in its own. And everybody should investigate that on their own. Look up the people who have done the research. But anyways, the whole point is they don't like other people's genocides, like the Armenian genocide. They would never acknowledge the Armenian genocide. They would never call it a genocide. The Holodomor, they've been denying the Holodomor for years. Suddenly, when Ukraine is a focal point here for World War III, and BlackRock has the contract already in hand to rebuild Ukraine. This will be the country of BlackRock. It'll be just called Ukraine. It'll be their country. They're going to own everything. They're going to control the government. They'll own the infrastructure. Now that that's the case, well, now they want to talk about the Holodomor. Well, first of all, one of the reasons why they didn't like to talk about the Holodomor is because the Bolsheviks were majority ran by Jewish people, by Russian Jews. That's where the Bolshevik Party was created. Karl Marx was the one who wrote the Communist Manifesto. The Bolsheviks were communists. The high-ranking officials, maybe not the guys at the top, although Lenin's questionable, but they say Stalin was a Jew. I think his wife was. They were all either married or controlled, had some kind of handler of some kind, but they killed millions, tens of millions of Christians, white Christians in Ukraine during the Holodomor. And, certainly millions. I don't know what exact number. I know that during the time of the Bolsheviks, in the Bolshevik Revolution, in about a 20-year span or so, there were tens of millions of people starved to death in that area. This has always been the mythology of my family because my grandmother was born in Ukraine. And so some of the stuff was sort of passed down, some of the information passed down generation to generation, talking about the people that starved. Obviously, this was a massive, huge, important talking point to them. They were very concerned about communism because they had watched people starving to death in the streets, literally starving to death in the streets, piles of bodies in the streets dying of starvation because the communists were coming and stealing all of the food from the farmers, taking it back to the elites, the upper echelon, the people who were on the inside of the Communist Party. So they don't like to talk about the Holodomor, at least historically they don't, but apparently they just figure everybody's too stupid at this point. Nobody knows their history. Most of the people are dead from that period in time. If they're not, they're extremely old. Maybe they're not even paying attention. They don't care because they're about to die. So now all of a sudden they care. That's very interesting. Of course, very convenient. You know, they always have their little plans that they got going on that they're concocting. So all right, you got a video. This is just a little video of, you know, not much here. It's just some bombs, missiles going off. Allegedly, this is in Ukraine. This is after the retaliation. So I went live, last Tuesday, a week ago today. And this is when this all started kicking off. Ukraine was launching missiles into Russia. And this is because Joe Biden had given the green light. Of course, he wants to escalate this. He wants to be, it's not him that wants it. It's the deep state, or the globalist deep state, whatever you want to call this cabal of people who has a world domination agenda that they are working to pull off. And they're extremely successful at it. They hold all of the power. The thing is, they've got to be careful because they are few and we are many. So if enough people were to find out about this stuff, which is why there's so much censorship in the world, that's why you are told not to listen to people like me. Because I'll tell you the truth. I'm not bound by anything. I'm not controlled by anything. Everything that I say is coming from my own brain. These are my own thoughts, critical thoughts that I come up with. I create them. I read things. I look at information. I get new information. Those thoughts change, and I mold my opinions to that. But they're firing rockets, missiles, whatever, into Russia. So Russia, of course, is responding. Zelensky's going to get his people killed. I mean, Zelensky is insane. You know, I don't know why we allow this guy who's just decided he's the new dictator of Ukraine. He was installed, so he's our puppet, right? Not ours, but whoever the deep state is, he's their puppet. But now there's back and forth. There's volley. And here, this is what they were talking about. Lord Bebo was saying that Russia's ICBM launch at Ukraine has triggered an early warning system today, and such launches are by default assumed to be nuclear. So apparently there was a short period of time, where Russia was launching these missiles. Now, it says here that the Defense Department says Russia informed the U.S. prior to launching this missile. The Defense Department told NPR that Russia notified the U.S. before launch. So apparently there's a system in place where if you're going to launch an intercontinental ballistic missile, which these are capable of carrying nuclear warheads, they don't have to carry a nuclear warhead, but they can. So if you're going to fire one into another country, you've got to notify the U.S. for sure. I would assume there's other countries that maybe are on that list. I don't know if anybody else got that notification, but certainly the United States did. We're the ones in charge. The U.S. is in charge. Europe will wait and see what the U.S. says. So apparently what will happen is, they don't know if it's a nuke or not until it hits the city. So they'll wait and see. They'll just let it get nuked. What can you do? If Russia launches a hypersonic intercontinental ballistic nuclear warhead at Ukraine, what is the U.S. going to do? We can't do anything to stop it. There's no way we intercept it. It would have to be jammed before it takes off. It's not going to happen. So we sit back and we watch. What happens if Russia does use a nuclear warhead on Ukraine? Does the U.S. sit by and watch, or do they return fire towards Russia? I don't think that we do, honestly, in reality. I don't think that we actually do anything. I don't think that we fire nukes. I don't think it starts a nuclear volley. I think that's just crazy hyperbole that a lot of people say, oh, it's going to be no nuclear winter fallout, blah, blah, blah. I don't think that happens. What I think happens is Russia fires a nuke at Ukraine. If this happens, right, theoretically, then that will just be used to demonize Russia for the rest of eternity. Putin will be the new Hitler. And then they will get to fight their war. There will be absolutely no person who is allowed to say that they do not agree with going to war with Russia because Russia used a nuke. That's what they'll say. Even though these nuclear warheads, most of the ones that are used, the United States government used nuclear bombs in Iraq and Afghanistan all the time. They're called bunker busters. They're just these smaller nukes these earth penetrating nukes. Used them all the time. So we've been using nukes. It's not like nukes don't get used. They do. But of course, it will. Even if Russia used the tiniest nuke, it will get blown so out of proportion, and that will be used. That will be the Pearl Harbor. That will be the 9/11. That's going to be their excuse. That no holds bar. That every country in Europe and every country in the Americas is all going to be on board. We're all going to invade Russia. Russians are evil. Russians are Nazi, Hitler, blah, 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 whatever their propaganda is. Obviously, we know here on Steve Graves Radio Show, we know a little bit of history about what's going on between Russia and Ukraine. NATO is the one provoking this stuff. You have here, like this article this post came out from Leading Report. France declares that Ukraine can use French Scalp missiles against Russia. So now you got other European countries that are saying that Ukraine has the green light to use their missiles to launch into Russia, which apparently before was not the case. So are we awake yet? NATO is the aggressor. NATO is the bad guy. NATO is the bad guy here, folks. And NATO ties into all of this New World Order, world domination, Illuminati agenda as well. What do you get out of World War II? What did we get after World War II? Because the United States of America allied with Stalin's communists in Russia, and Winston Churchill was provoking Germany to no end. They were bombing civilian cities in Germany. The U.S., after they joined, was bombing civilian cities in Germany, like Dresden, places like terrible atrocities, killing thousands of Germans that were just civilians, women and children, not military targets. This is all, and we'll get into the world wars in a minute. But what do you get? You get NATO out of World War II. You get the UN. The United Nations comes out of World War II. During World War II, the United Nations is a brainchild of the Rothschilds. They're the ones who financed the beginning of it. They even gave one of their mansions in downtown London to the UN to use as their clubhouse. And then you also get the European Union. So post World War II, you get NATO, you get the United Nations, you get the European Union. And this is all centralized power. Why do they want to centralize power in all these various things? Because the more centralized power that they have, the more control that they have. You decentralize and scatter the power, well, these global elites, they don't have very much power then at that point. But when they hold the power in the European Union, they have these these are unelected people. These aren't people that these are not democratically elected people. You don't go vote for who the UN person is. You don't go vote for who's the NATO guy, or who's the European Union Congress or whatever they call it over there in Europe, their parliament. I think they have a European Union parliament. This is what you get. You get centralized powers. Post World War II, that's part of their plan. Now we're getting into their third stage of the plan, which is World War III. And we'll take a look at that in a minute. But first, let's finish up with what's going on in Russia. So BBC here reporting Russia and Ukraine trade missile and drone strikes from 12 hours ago. Russia and Ukraine have traded airstrikes after a week of intensifying rhetoric in which Russia tested a new missile on Ukraine. Russia has made close to 1,500 strikes on Ukraine since Sunday evening on about half of the country's regions, causing dozens of injuries. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said. Meanwhile, Ukraine's military said it had struck a key oil depot south of Moscow and targets in the Bryansk and Kursk border regions. Russia's use of the Oreshnik intermediate range ballistic missile on the Ukrainian city of Dnipro capped a week of escalation in the war that also saw Ukraine fire U.S. and British missiles into Russia for the first time. I know I'm kind of bouncing around here a little bit. It's hard to... I'm in a lot of pain, so it's hard to keep my my train of thought fully pure. So So now you got Russia's testing out their new hypersonic missiles. Seem to be very effective. There was nothing that could be. There was nothing. No air defense. No missile defense system that blocked it. It hit target. So obviously this is going to keep escalating. Who is the aggressor? Who is the original aggressor? You can go back all the way to. I mean, the only thing that's truly relevant, in my opinion, is going back to like 2014 with Victoria Meyer Newland, who is, yes, tiny hat person. And her coup there, the Maidan uprising in 2014, where they installed Poroshenko, their puppet. And by the way, you got Vladimir Klitschko coming out, a Ukrainian boxer, if you guys are old enough to remember. The Klitschko boxers, he's totally controlled by these deep staters in Ukraine. He's a part of their club. He was in 2014. I think he was appointed mayor of of Kiev or some other big city in Ukraine. I don't remember, but they were even thinking about installing him as the president instead of Poroshenko. There was a debate. There's the leaked phone calls of Victoria Nuland talking to somebody else in the State Department. I don't remember who. But they're talking about, well, Klitschko, can we use Klitschko? Is he easy enough to control? There was an argument going on about that. He comes out and because Joe Rogan came out and said that he's like, F you, Zelensky, basically. He's like, you guys are firing missiles like Joe Biden. Like, we have like 2 months left until Trump gets into office to squash this whole thing. And Joe Biden gives the green light, and Ukraine takes that opportunity to start firing missiles and escalating the war. Why would you do that? Well, because he's just a puppet too. He's not, or any of these people really in control. None of the people who are officially in control are actually in control of anything. It's all of their manipulators. It's all of their handlers behind the scenes. Zelensky really doesn't have all that much power. He does what he's told. He does what he's allowed to do. If the only reason why he declared himself the dictator of Ukraine and suspended elections a couple of years ago, or was it this? I think it was earlier this year. Suspended elections. I think their presidency lasts for 6 years. So he was elected in like 2018. I think the election was supposed to be this year. He suspended elections and gets away with it. Why? We're giving them hundreds of billions of dollars. Of course, if we thought that there was a problem there, we would go, hey, buddy, you got to have an election. You can't just decide you're the dictator now. But of course, he's allowed to do that because he's controlled. He's a puppet. So there's that. That's where we are. This is what's going on. This is what we're up to. This is where World War III is basically getting into full swing. Let's talk about, well, let me look at the chat, but I will bring up the page here. We're going to talk about Albert Pike. We're going to talk about the 3 world wars, the prophecies. Albert Pike, in my opinion, definitely Illuminati, high-ranking in the Scottish Rite, Masons. Actually, I got his books in right here, his Morals and Dogma, Ancient and Accepted Rite. So he was a 33rd degree Mason. He was a general in the Confederate Army, and that was only because of regional where he lived, I think. Even though they had a statue of him at the White House, I think until 2020, maybe, when they started tearing down statues of everything. Let's see. Let's see what Rob's got to say here. He's got some chats going on. He says that Canada is U.S. largest trading partner, LNG pipeline project. Remember? Okay, yeah. I mean, whatever. We do that stuff not out of necessity. We're not shipping in gas or oil from Canada because we need to. It's just because we want to, as a little favor. We're like, hey, you guys are our buddies up north, and politicians get together and they do corrupt things. We don't actually need it. We have plenty of it here. We have plenty in the United States of America, within our territories. Okay, so let's talk about this. Albert Pike, like I said, 33rd degree Freemason. He's the one who founded the Scottish Rite sect of Freemasonry. They're still around, very powerful. he wrote a letter back in 1871, August 15th, 1871, the Illuminati plan for 3 world wars. And of course, this has been around forever. Of course, the Illuminati controllers come out and they're like, this is not real. They'll call it a fake, whatever. How can it be fake when it's been around long before World War III started, whatever this is that we're living through right now? And it's pretty much spot on. So the following is a letter that speculation claimed that Albert Pike wrote to Giuseppe Mazzini in 1871 regarding a conspiracy involving 3 world wars that were planned in an attempt to take over the world. This is what I reference all the time, because when you read this, when I found out about this, I go, well, obviously this is the plan. They've created a plan and they're going to follow through with it. So it was pretty easy to predict what was going on with the Third World War coming. Because these guys at the Illuminati, they're the ones who have this power. They're the ones who are able to pull this stuff off. They're the ones who control. They pull the strings at the banks. They pull the strings at the intelligence agencies. They pull the strings at the media. The Pike letter to Giuseppe Mazzini was on display in the British Museum Library in London until 1977, which now the library in London, the British Museum Library in London, denies this. They say that never happened. But apparently there are plenty of witnesses who say that, yes, indeed, this was there. They deny it, though. They go, that never happened. Some of the stuff they'll deny when it's convenient, sort of like the Balfour Declaration, which I believe the Rothschilds have framed hanging on a wall. They're very proud of it. But if ever a time came where they had to change history and it wasn't convenient for them to have that anymore, then they would just say that they never had it. That never existed. What are you talking about? We never had that. We never had it framed on our wall. Even though there's video of Jacob Rothschild going, look at this here. Look at this beautiful Balfour Declaration, which is what got us into World War I. This letter has been claimed by many internet sites to reside in the British Library in London, which denies the letter's existence. So we'll go through each one, the First World War, and kind of see what we think here. So following are apparently extracts from the letter showing how 3 world wars have been planned for many generations. So for the First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the czars in Russia and of making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergences caused by the Agentur agents of the Illuminati between the British and Germanic empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions. So what happened? What did we have happen in World War I? You do have the Bolsheviks. They go into the castle where the czars live in Russia. They brutally murder them in their sleep, or whatever they did, horrible things. And then you have them going to war with Germany, basically. And there's the spread of communism, Bolshevism, communism, same thing. And like I say here, at the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions, which is what happens. And that's what happens with these communist countries, is that government becomes the religion, communism becomes the religion. They have to get rid of any other sort of identification that you may have, any sort of family unit. This is why they talk about the gray race. This is why this is why there is a white replacement theory. That's not a theory. It's actually happening. It's an agenda, because they need to get rid of these sort of cultural or nationalistic or racial identities, because then the people might band together and it's harder to fight them that way if they have that sort of pride or whatever in their identity, whether it be cultural or religious or whatever their heritage is. So that's what communism, the real goal there is. They love to push race mixing. They demonize white people to no end. They want to destroy the white race. This is true. This is not made up. It's quite obvious. If you just take a look around you, look at what the media pumps Look at what politicians say. Look at affirmative action. Look at whatever. I mean, there's just there's tons of white hatred out there. And of course, the encouragement of people mixing, ending their bloodlines, whatever it may be. You know, if you're a Mexican, then and you breed with a white guy, then you're ending sort of your bloodline there. Now it's becoming it's verging into converging into something else. Towards the gray race. That's what they call it. You know, like Bad Religion, the band, the punk rock band, had an album called The Gray Race. This is what they want. They talked about it openly. Yes, Bad Religion, members of the Tiny Hat Society. They are of the tribe. So let's take a look. So First World War, spot on. Albert Pike, somehow. Now he says that this letter that he wrote, these are prophecies that were given to him through a spirit guide or whatever they talked. So all of these people are deeply into this occultic sort of weird Luciferian religion stuff. It could be satanic, Luciferian, whatever you want to call it. They get very deep into this stuff. Guys like Aleister Crowley, another 33-degree Mason, Albert Pike, they all have these spirit guides, which basically sounds like a demon. They have like a demon that communicates with them in their brain. That's where he says that he got this prophecy from. The Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that Nazism is destroyed and that the political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel and Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be then restrained and held in check until a time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm. So they mentioned Nazism. I don't know. I don't think Nazism. I'm not sure if it existed at that point. I don't know when the National Socialist Party of Germany, came around. This is obviously 1871, quite a few years before World War II. But the fascists, maybe they've revised this and said put Nazism in there. Could be just referring to the fascists. But yes, they called the Nazis fascists. And you have political Zionists, the guys like Theodore Herzl, who created the first Congress of Zion. There's this entire agenda that's part of what World War I was all about. You had the Rothschilds, the Balfour Declaration. They want to drag the United States into the war. And this solidifies a ton of power for the Rothschilds banking cartel. The Bank of England becomes the most powerful bank in the world, at least for a short while there, until the U.S. takes over a couple decades later. Second World War, you have this between, which really there's plenty of evidence to show that the Zionists in Germany, they had a lot of power. This is what the thing is that people get, we get so confused on, because we've been lied to and propagandized so heavily. When you think of Jews during World War II, all you think of is, oh my God, poor Jews. They were all in the ghettos. They were all being gassed, and they had no power. They were totally helpless. That's not true at all. This entire time, since the 1700s for sure, but I'm sure you could go back further, especially when it comes into these extremely elitist cabals. They had tons of power during World War II. They had tons of power in the United States. They had tons of power all over the rest of Europe. They had tons of power all over Russia, the Bolsheviks, the communists. The Jews were extremely powerful during this time. They controlled media all over the place. They controlled the banks all over the place. So the fact that people want to victimize them and go, oh my God, the Jews were so, what happened to the Jews in World War II, blah, 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 which they used to their advantage. They took this stuff, they made up a bunch of lies, propaganda. Literally what was happening is people were starving to death in these internment camps because supply chains were cut off. Supply chains were cut off from the West. Europe was to the West. They were bombing the hell out of Germany. And then to the East was Russia, the USSR. and they were attacking Germany. Germany was totally squeezed. So any of these internment camps, these worker labor camps that they had where they were holding the Jews, which, by the way, the United States of America had the exact same thing for Japanese people. We had internment camps in the United States of America, and guess what would have happened to them if the war went differently and our supply chains were cut off? Those people all would have been the first to starve to death as well. So there's a lot of lies that are told about the entire thing altogether. But anyways, they use those lies to their advantage to get this sort of victim card and a sort of a free pass for them. They consider this a free pass. They say never again. No, we'll never allow that to happen again, which is something that never even happened in the first place. But they use it, they weaponized it, and now they genocide other countries because of it. Because apparently they have the right to do that, because never again. You can never, ever, ever question or criticize an Israeli or a Jew ever again, because if you do that, you're an anti-Semite, you're evil, and you're a Nazi. So, anyways, the Palestine stuff here: during the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be then restrained and held in check until a time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm. So I believe they're referring to the final social cataclysm would probably be what we're living through right now. So yeah, they definitely wanted to take out Christendom, which is what you saw in these communist countries a lot. You saw the expansion of communism. Obviously, we allied with communist Russia. Communist Russia was very powerful. After the war, we gave them half of Germany. We gave them a bunch of German scientists and engineers, so on and so forth. Their rocket program, their space program became very advanced. They were very powerful after World War II. They got a lot of power from this. Until, the 1991 or whenever the USSR broke up. And really, anytime you look at communism, that's technically, in my opinion, communism is anti-Christian. Because you have got to replace your religious belief, your belief in Jesus Christ, you've got to replace it with the state. The state is your God at that point. And that's what they want. They want you to believe that the state is your God. Just like in North Korea, Kim Jong-un is their God. He's their imperial master God, whatever. And like I said, they spread communism all over. It wasn't just in Russia. It was all over Asia. China became communist after World War II. With Mao Zedong. Obviously, the Russians were down there helping them out, set up their communist government. It spread to Vietnam and Cambodia and all over the place. Communism was on the rise. It was all over the place. It still is to this day. I mean, look at this. They're pumping communists out of our colleges current day. So the communists have never really truly lost power. Sometimes they're just taking their time, playing the long game, using generations to subvert people, to subvert our entire culture. Look at the hippies. The hippies are basically a psyop. They took these people, told them that they were anti-establishment and all these things. And look at all these hippies now. They're the ones who are running the show, and they're the worst. They're the absolute worst. They're the most tyrannical demons out there, and they refuse to give up their power. But all of that communist indoctrination started back then with the hippies. They just disguised it well, but now they're blatantly open about it. And now it's being taught in the colleges. Now it's being forced down people's throat through the corporate world. Okay, so let's get to the Third World War here. Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agentur of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. And so that they had a plan to have a state of Israel for a long time. It didn't just start in 1897 with Theodore Herzl. This was already something that had been discussed for quite some time between these Zionists who were hell-bent on world domination. According to them, they deserve to rule the world, and you should be their slave. And they used Judaism to get to that point. And that's why I really find Judaism to be quite repulsive, especially this stuff that you found in the Talmud. Old Testament still pretty despicable. There's a lot of really weird stuff in the Old Testament. Read the Old Testament sometime. It's like, what are these? What the hell is going on with these people? The Hebrews and the pagans and all these people in the Old Testament. I mean, it was a total shit show back then. So they had a plan to create the state of Israel long before it ever came to fruition. Obviously, the first Congress of Zion, which was held in, I believe, 1897 by Theodore Herzl in like Switzerland or something. It was still another 50 years basically until they got their state of Israel. So this is a long play. These aren't things that are just happening overnight. They're taking their time. They're setting their pieces into place. And apparently these people are so gung-ho on it, it doesn't matter if it happens in their lifetime. They just want to do their part and pass the baton on to the next generation, whoever it may be. So meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. And, you know, you see this happening now, nihilists and atheists. And look, there are times where I feel like a nihilist because I'm just one powerless human being. I don't make a difference in the world at all on the large scale. And so at times I just think, why do I care about anything? Why even care? Why give a damn if people are blowing each other up across the planet? Why give a damn if the New World Order and these Illuminati assholes want to enslave humanity? It probably, you know, maybe I'll just be dead eventually. Why does it even matter? That's the thing, is you get beaten down over time with all what they do. There is exhaustion, physical, moral, spiritual, economic exhaustion. All the things that they're saying here, all of this stuff is obviously becoming true. This is stuff that's why I always say this stuff is by design. When we talk about when they make decisions about the economy, and it's like you're imploding it on purpose. There's no way around it. There's no way that you can look at these decisions that are made, like printing trillions of dollars, and go, yeah, they didn't know what was going to happen. They didn't know that was going to cause massive inflation. Of course they know. But that's their whole plan. That's the whole point. The whole point of them even having control of the system is so that they can blow it up whenever they feel like it. That's why it's so dangerous for us to leave that in the hands of a private banking institution with the Federal Reserve. They can blow it up whenever they want. And then what? Then what do we do? Then we're screwed. That's why we should not have them have that much power over us. So yeah, they're going to bring about absolute atheism, which I feel it seems like we're already getting pretty close to that. There are so many atheists in the world. The origin of savagery in the most blatant one. Now, I don't know what they're referring to. Probably some, these people are into really sick, twisted stuff. I don't know how many people out there, if they don't believe this stuff is real or not, when it comes to these blood rituals and sex rituals that these elites do. The reason why they're doing this stuff is because in order to get into these clubs, into these groups of people, they've got to be able to blackmail you. And maybe at some point they become so evil that they actually do enjoy this stuff. Maybe it becomes addictive. They feel the power. These people are already sociopathic anyways and extremely narcissistic. So they'll do anything to get more power and more love and things like that. So, but this stuff is all absolutely true. These religions, these ancient, like Babylonian, this mysticism is absolutely real. 100%. When you hear about all of these missing people who are being human trafficked, look at all these places where there's hundreds of thousands of people in the United States right now that are being human trafficked and have gone missing. Hundreds of thousands of them. A lot of these people are kidnapped, brought into these weird basements, and they are used for sexual and blood magic rituals. They'll usually rape them for however long, and then at some point they will kill them. And that's just what's going on. I know it sounds crazy, it sounds insane, and you don't want to believe it. When people say things like that, you just want to go, that's absurd. But it's real. It's really happening. These things do exist. It's been going on for thousands of years. It's nothing new. Obviously, it's hidden. That's the whole point. That's why it's a cult. A cult just means hidden. These things, if they are exposed, well, I think a lot of people will be extremely upset about it. At least I would hope so. That's the reason why they killed Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know what they're going to do with P. Diddy. I don't know how connected his operation was to CIA or Mossad. I'm assuming it was definitely connected. I don't think you can get away with that type of nonsense for that long without having some sort of higher power that is allowing you to do it. Similar to if you ever read about that book about Charlie Manson. Was it the Manson, the CIA, and JFK or something like that? I forget something O'Neill wrote that book, and it talks about Charles Manson. Basically, every time he gets arrested, somebody comes down, a higher up comes down and lets him out of prison. Why? Because they're using him. He's the guy who goes out and they feed LSD to him, and he gives it to all these people and creates these cults and does mind control. All right, so then everywhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization. And the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without a compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. And I think I've seen other versions of this, but it talks about the mutual. Well, oh no, it's right here. This is where it's at. The political Zionism and the Muslim Arabic world there will be mutual destruction. It's hard to believe that. Maybe that is the plan. I guess time will tell. Will the state of Israel be destroyed? I mean, it's totally feasible. It's possible. It could happen if that's the sacrifice that needs to be made. I think there'll be a lot of Zionists that are upset about it. But the Zionists aren't, they have a lot of power within the Illuminati. I don't know if they have total power, and I think that they're also willing to sacrifice themselves in many cases in order to accomplish a larger agenda. But yeah, this is what it seems to be, that everything is heading towards, that the doctrine of Lucifer, this is what they all believe in, and this is what they want to bring about on a mass level to the world. It seems pretty clear. I mean, look at when you look at something like Satanism, at least as an official religion, you have the same guy, I don't remember his name, the same guy who founded the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, is the same guy who wrote the Satanic Bible. And there are plenty of rabbis out there, or at least I've seen videos of rabbis saying out loud that most Jews will not admit this, but Satan is our true object of worship. So there's a lot of really strange things. There's a lot of hidden things. They're intentionally hidden. Obviously, a lot of knowledge that is withheld. There's kept secret within these secret societies. I also include Judaism, at least on the higher levels. And Judaism works very similarly to Masonic systems. It's a level system. You start at the bottom, you work your way up. As you gain more knowledge and become more loyal to the movement, you get access to more and more and more information. And some things you're not even allowed to learn about until a certain age. I don't think that Jews can learn about the Zohar until they're 40 years old, and it might only be men. So they're selective about who's allowed to learn certain things. Masonic world, you have the different levels, level 1 to level 33. So a lot of this stuff is sort of the same thing with a little bit of a different packaging on it. At the end of the day, the conclusion that I've come to is that all of these sort of schools of thought, these esoteric schools of thought or mysticism, they all stem from the Mystery Babylon religions. And that's something that Bill Cooper talked about. He did, I don't know how many years of research on this stuff and reading all of the books by Albert Pike and all these other 33 degree Masons, Crowley, and who knows who else, and sort of piecing things together. Look at history. The if you ever get a chance, if you don't know who his name was Milton William Cooper, Bill Cooper, he had a radio show back in the 80s, and he was predicting all of this stuff. Everything that's happening today, he predicted it back then. It's all come to fruition. He was executed by the state. They said that he was not paying his taxes. They went to his house, murdered him in his own house. So I say that he was executed by the state. And guys like Alex Jones, who, you know, is he an overall net benefit to a lot of the causes and movements? I'm not sure. I think he comes out, he looks a little bit crazy, whatever. That doesn't bother me. But certain things he toes the line on. He'll blame the Chi-Coms for things that clearly the Israeli influence is doing. So he is controlled to some degree. I don't think he always was, but everybody gives him credit for all this stuff when back in the day he was taking notes from Bill Cooper. Bill Cooper predicted 9/11 in June of 2001 or 2000. It might have been a year or so before. And then it was several months later that Alex Jones was making the exact same prediction about Osama bin Laden and so on and so forth. So anyways, I am actually, I'm hurting pretty bad. So it's hard to think. I can't really, I can't keep the show going much longer. I will, well, looks like no chat or anything going on. Anyways, so I'll leave you guys with that. I know I'm sorry for the clunkiness of the show, but you know, when you got 3 blown discs in your neck, it's hard to concentrate. So anyways, again, hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. I appreciate all those things. And I'll try to get back on here as soon as physically possible and talk about some more of this stuff. But in the meantime, hope everybody has a great night.